What do you want, Scorpion?
If it makes you any happier to call me names.
Some stars shine so brightly, it feels like they'll never fade. We invite them into our homes through film and music, and they become part of our lives. But when a life ends suddenly, especially in the skies, the loss feels even more profound. Today, we remember actors whose final journey ended in flight. Their stories didn't stop with tragedy. They live on in the memories they gave us.
Why don't you give me about 10 minutes to check first?
All right, go ahead.
Carlos Gardel, 1890-1935. To Argentina, Carlos Gardel was more than a star. He was the very soul of tango. With his velvety baritone voice and irresistible stage presence, Gardel turned a street-born dance into a refined art. Songs like Mi Noche Triste transformed tango lyrics into poetry, filled with longing and romance. But Gardel wasn't just a singer. He was a movie star, too. In the early 1930s, he dazzled in several musical films that brought Latin American stories to life on screen. His fame spread across continents. Audiences loved his elegance, his charm, and above all, his authenticity. In 1935, at the height of his career, Gardel boarded a flight in Colombia as part of a South American tour. The plane never reached its destination. It crashed on takeoff, claiming his life and that of his trusted collaborator, lyricist Alfredo Lepera. Gardel was only 44. The news sent shockwaves through Latin America. His body was returned to Argentina via a mournful journey through cities filled with grieving fans. To this day, Argentinians say, Carlos Gardel sings better every day. His voice may have fallen silent in life, but not in memory. Leslie Howard, 1893-1943. British actor Leslie Howard had the kind of face that carried Shakespearean gravitas and old-world charm. His breakthrough came with Pygmalion, but American audiences remember him most fondly as Ashley Wilkes in Gone with the Wind, a quiet, thoughtful presence in a stormy Southern drama. But Howard's career was far more than just cinema. When war came to Europe, he took on a new role, a patriot. He made propaganda films for the Allied cause and worked behind the scenes to support Britain's efforts in World War II. On June 1, 1943, while returning from a diplomatic trip to Portugal, the commercial aircraft he boarded was shot down over the Bay of Biscay by German forces. All 17 passengers were killed. Rumors circulated for years about the real purpose of his mission, and official records remained sealed until 2043. Regardless of mystery, what remains clear is this: Leslie Howard was more than an actor. He was a man of conviction, and he gave his life in service to his country. Carole Lombard, 1908-1942. Carole Lombard wasn't just glamorous, she was electric. Known for her quick wit and impeccable timing, she lit up the screen in screwball comedies of the 1930s, such as My Man Godfrey, for which she earned an Oscar nomination. But behind the camera, she was just as admired, gracious, generous, and fiercely devoted to those she loved. In 1939, she married Clark Gable, and together they became one of Hollywood's most beloved couples. When World War II broke out, Carole volunteered to promote war bonds. In January 1942, after a successful fundraising tour in Indiana, she was offered the option of returning home by train. Impatient to get back to Gable, she insisted on flying. The plane, a DC-3, struck a mountain near Las Vegas, its navigation hindered by blackout precautions against possible Japanese attacks. Carole was just 33. Her mother and MGM publicist Otto Winkler were also on board. Clark Gable never fully recovered. Though he remarried later in life, he requested to be buried beside her. And so he was. Their final resting place, a quiet testament to a love story that ended far too soon. Pedro Infante, 1917–1957. In Mexico, Pedro Infante wasn't just a movie star, he was the movie star. With his boyish grin, strong voice, and undeniable charisma, he became a symbol of national pride. Known as El Idolo de Mexico, he starred in over 60 films and recorded more than 300 songs, many of which are still cherished today. Infante had a passion for flying. He even owned his own plane, a modified C-87, a military aircraft repurposed for personal use. He had survived 2 crashes before, but on April 15, 1957, luck ran out. Taking off from Merida en route to Mexico City, his plane lost control and crashed. He was just 39. A memorial now stands at the crash site. Every April, fans gather to honor his life with music and flowers. Decades have passed, but for millions, Pedro Infante remains the voice of a generation and a national treasure whose memory soars on. Audi Murphy, 1925–1971. Before the cameras ever found him, Audi Murphy was already a hero. One of the most decorated American soldiers of World War II, he earned the Medal of Honor and became a symbol of quiet bravery. When he returned home, Hollywood came calling, and Murphy hesitantly stepped into a new kind of spotlight. He played himself in To Hell and Back, based on his wartime memoir, and went on to star in over 40 films. But success didn't bring ease. Murphy battled PTSD and financial hardships, filing for bankruptcy in the late 1960s. In May 1971, hoping to rebuild his life, he boarded a small plane for a business trip to Virginia. The aircraft crashed into a forested mountain. No survivors. He was only 45. Audi Murphy was buried with full military honors in Arlington National Cemetery. Though remembered on screen, his greatest role was the one he never sought. A soldier whose courage carried beyond the battlefield. Eve Meyer, 1928–1977. Eve Meyer may be best known as a muse of cult filmmaker Russ Meyer, but she was also a producer in her own right. Smart, business-minded, and ahead of her time. Once a Playboy centerfold and pin-up model, she worked behind the scenes on films like Faster, Pussycat, Kill, Kill, and Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, co-written by the legendary Roger Ebert. Eve was a frequent traveler, and in March 1977, she boarded a KLM flight from the Canary Islands. That day would become infamous. Due to a chain of miscommunications, 2 jumbo jets collided on the runway at Tenerife Airport in one of the worst aviation disasters in history. She was 48. Though associated with a niche corner of cinema, Eve's contributions as a creative force are remembered by film historians and cult fans alike. And her loss is one thread in a vast tragedy that changed aviation safety forever. Bill Graham, 1931–1991. While not widely known for acting, Bill Graham shaped the cultural stage on which music legends stood. A Holocaust survivor who became one of the most influential concert promoters in history, he brought acts like the Rolling Stones, Grateful Dead, and Santana to millions. Bill had a larger-than-life energy, and it naturally led him to appear in a few iconic films, including Apocalypse Now and A Star is Born. He was always close to the creative spark, on stage or behind the camera. In 1991, Graham was returning home from a charity concert when tragedy struck. Ignoring weather warnings, the pilot of his helicopter took off in heavy fog. The aircraft crashed into a high-voltage tower near Vallejo, California. Bill Graham was 60 years old. The music world lost a titan that day. Yet his legacy plays on in every live concert, every massive festival, and every time a spotlight rises on stage. Bill made sure the show always went on. John Denver, 1943, 1997. John Denver's voice was like a warm breeze on a mountain morning. His songs, Take Me Home, Country Roads, Annie's Song, Rocky Mountain High, painted pictures of open skies and quiet places. For many, his music was the sound of home. But Denver was more than a musician. With his easygoing charm, he found his way into film and television, even starring in the hit movie Oh God, alongside George Burns. He had a natural warmth that made him feel like someone you'd known your whole life. Flying was another passion of his. He loved the freedom of the skies. On October 12, 1997, he was piloting a small experimental plane over California when the aircraft crashed into Monterey Bay. He was just 53. Though he's no longer with us, John Denver's voice still echoes across the hills, a gentle reminder of the beauty he gave to the world. Barry Baronson, 1948-2001. Barry Baronson was known in many circles as a fashion photographer, as the sister of actress Marissa Berenson, and as the wife of Psycho star Anthony Perkins. But to those who knew her, she was far more than her titles. She was thoughtful, artistic, and deeply devoted to her family. Barry took occasional roles in film, including Remember My Name and Cat People, often working alongside her husband. After Perkins died in 1992, Barry focused on raising their children and carrying on with quiet dignity. On September 11, 2001, Barry was returning home to Los Angeles from a vacation in Cape Cod. She boarded American Airlines Flight 11, the same flight that would be hijacked and flown into the World Trade Center. In the years that followed, friends remembered her not just for the tragedy, but for her spirit. One called her the personification of unconditional love. Today, her memory lives on through her photography, her sons, and the kindness she shared with the world. Dean Paul Martin, 1951-1987. Dean Paul Martin inherited charm from his famous father, crooner Dean Martin. But he quickly proved he was much more than a famous name. First, he turned heads on the tennis court, even competing at Wimbledon. Then came acting roles in both film and television, where he brought quiet depth and poise to every part he played. But Dean's real passion was the sky. He joined the U.S. Air Force and became a fighter pilot, dedicated, disciplined, and proud to serve. In March 1987, during a training mission in California, Dean's F-4 Phantom jet disappeared in a snowstorm. Hours later, search teams confirmed the tragic news. The plane had struck a mountainside. Both Dean and his weapons officer were killed. He was just 35. His death was a blow to his family, his colleagues, and all who saw in him a bright future. A man of heart, talent, and courage, remembered with reverence by those who knew the sky was always calling him. Christian Oliver, 1972-2024. Christian Oliver was a face you may have seen without always knowing the name. For nearly 30 years, he worked steadily in television, films, and even video games. From early roles in Saved by the Bell, the new class to appearances in The Good German and Speed Racer, he brought quiet professionalism to every part. In January 2024, Christian was flying with his two young daughters to the Caribbean island of St. Lucia after completing a film he had helped produce, Forever Hold Your Peace. Just after takeoff, the small plane suffered a mechanical failure and plunged into the sea. All 3 lives were lost. He was only 51. For colleagues, the tragedy was a cruel end to a project close to his heart. His final performance, now posthumous, carries the weight of a farewell never intended, and a reminder of how precious every chapter is. Aaliyah, 1979-2001. Aaliyah Dana Houghton was more than a rising star. She was a phenomenon in the making. At just 15, her debut album, Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, put her on the map. By the time she released her second album, One in a Million, the world knew her name. Her sound was fresh, her image magnetic, and her stage presence beyond her years. But Aaliyah wasn't content to stay within one lane. In 2000, she took a leap into film, co-starring with Jet Li in Romeo Must Die. It was clear she had the charisma to match her voice. She was slated to play the lead in Queen of the Damned, a gothic role that would show her range. Tragically, in August 2001, after completing a music video shoot in the Bahamas, Aaliyah boarded a small plane to return to the U.S. The aircraft crashed just after takeoff. Everyone on board was lost. She was only 22. Her final film was released posthumously, a glimpse of the actress she could have become. But to millions, Aaliyah remains forever young. A voice, a smile, a star that burned too brightly to last. Though their time was cut short, their legacy remains. In every film, every note, every smile they left behind, they are still with us. Gone from this world, but never from memory. If you'd like to honor more stories from Hollywood's past, subscribe to our channel. One life, one legacy, one story at a time.